Every once in a while, it's important to be honest. Very, very honest. And I had a conversation tonight where a good friend and a mentor asked me to post the following on Facebook. And so I did. I'm going to read it to you. I'll be looking down most of the time because I'll be reading, but I wrote it. I meant it. It's been an interesting week. I attended the funeral of a beloved woman who helped hundreds of people. There were at least 200 people there to honor her. One night, I recorded a friend performing an original worship song in 3 languages. That was actually really cool. I picked up a bag full of bedbug infested clothing from a hospital so a guy didn't have to throw away his driver's license. I literally strapped it to the top of my car and drove home. And then I had it in my car. Well, I had possession of it until the next morning because the place that it was going, which was the apartment building he was from, would not accept it in the middle of the night. So I had to take it off my car, set it in the middle of the driveway, and then put it back on the car and take it over there the next morning. All because it was completely infested with bed bugs, as was his apartment. The hospital said that no one else would return their calls. That's true. They called me late afternoon. They said no one else will even deal with this. No one will talk to us. But when I fail to return a call, I'm a horrible person. A ministry gave me a new guitar. It was a Taylor. It's awesome. It is a Taylor. I love it. And that's a dream come true for me. Incredible blessing. I mean, I could not afford that guitar. I just couldn't afford it. But it is beautiful. Oh my goodness, it plays so nice. All my instruments and amplifiers were stolen from my house in Arizona by drug addicts when I came to Wisconsin. And that's true. I lost everything. I lost expensive microphones. I lost all the gear that I had led worship with and all the gear that I had played in nightclubs with for years. Everything, all stolen. And it was because the person who was watching my house invited someone in to help them get on their feet. And they robbed me in appreciation of being helped. I don't know. All I knew is I paid the price. Literally tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment just gone. Another bought me a new laptop to use in projecting song lyrics during church services. I've been praying for that for 6 months. And it just, boop, there it was. There it was. I've been cursed out repeatedly by people asking for help, and when being told that they don't have a good reason for requiring aid, blow up and scream F you. Wow, that is true. People will call up and they're so nice and they're so polite, and when it's obvious that they're just scamming to get drugs, they lose their minds. Most of these were drug related. I've had divine appointments and been caught up in petty BS while trying to remain focused on what's important. What's important to me? God, family. I answered the phone at 2 a.m. to give a ride to a guy who was robbed and beaten bloody while he was involved in something drug and homosexual related. I was with him for about an hour. And as the hour went on, his story just didn't make any sense. But you know how people actually tell you what's really happening, even when they don't mean to? Yeah, it was actually pretty ugly. I didn't get to sleep that night. And yet, I still showed up on time to lead worship with a smile at church the next morning and did it again that evening. Now, when I wrote this, I skipped the fact that I took a nap in between, but it's true. There have been several food baskets distributed and gas dispensed to people living in their cars. It's cold here in Wisconsin right now. Actually, today was beautiful, but it's cold in Wisconsin in the winter. And there are a lot of people who are out of homes. They just don't have anywhere else to go. They're living in their cars, and gas is now, what, $1 million a gallon? So, and we ran out of money. We're not able to give gas cards the way we were. We simply don't have the cash to do it. We're not a government-funded ministry. We're just barely getting by. I've gotten 3 gas cards in the last week that I could give out and had easily 15 requests. I lived in a tent for 3 months last summer in order to do this ministry. The only way that it could actually work was for me to stay here, but I didn't have a place to stay and I didn't have the money to stay here. But my wife and I lived in a tent in my sister's backyard for 3 months. There just wasn't any room for us anywhere else, but we knew that we were doing what God wanted us to do. I wrote 2 new worship songs and one about throwing up at the county fair. I'm really proud of that one, actually. I wrote a song about being on the merry-go-round and getting sick. It did my heart good to write something just for me. And the bank refused us a loan for our new church building the day before we were due to close. They kept stalling and stalling and stalling. And this was after 3 months from the time we originally got the accepted offer. For 3 months, we've been extending and extending on this building. No one else wants it. It's a beautiful building. It's perfect for us. No one else wants it. But the banks just won't, they're just not interested in giving us the money. Anyway, I cried my eyes out in frustration, and that's true, I really did. In the meantime, we have the money. To pay for a monthly payment and are bursting at the seams in our present facility. It's true. You know, we have assets. We have way more assets than we need, but they're not interested in assets. They're interested in how much actual cash do we bring in per month. But we're a ministry. We're not a business. We can't show them receipts and say, well, this is who gives, because it's really just whatever God provides. But in 48 years, God has never failed to provide for this ministry. A ministry gave us $5,000 for our new building, and that makes $10,000 in 2 weeks. That's true. And now it's actually up to $11,000. So we have about 15% of the cost of this new building. Still no loan. I've been practicing with both finger picks on guitar and a cajon. I've been blessed. I've been really blessed. I realized on Friday that I've been so stressed out and distracted that I failed to make a house payment 2 weeks ago. Even though the money was in the bank, I forget. Just too many things going on, I forget. I focused on worship as a way of building the foundation for the rest of my life, or for the rest of life. I think worship is first. I think that it's vitally important that the Overflowing Cup and Micquette Archambault personally worship. Worship needs to come first. God needs to come first. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Can't be any other way. Not in ministry. Did I mention I lead worship at least 4 times a week in addition to daily personal devotions? It's true. I lead worship a lot. Worship is vertical. For me, leading worship is vertical. Vertical. But leading other people into worship is actually a horizontal experience. So, although I must enter into worship in order to bring people with me, it's not the same as me just having that worship experience. So a drunk guy called me 6 times this week demanding I give him $20 so he can do his laundry at 11 o'clock or later. That's true. And each time he's called me, I've talked to him I've been on the phone with him for anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half. He just calls late at night. I'm usually working on the computer. I set the phone on. And just let him talk. I don't really have anything to say. I just let him talk. And then eventually he just gets frustrated and angry at me for not giving him what he wants, which is cash. He wants cash. And it's always for something lame. Yeah, he's called me a useless piece of shit over and over and over again. He blows up after a while when he realizes that I'm not going to give him the cash. I don't even have the cash to give him. But when he realizes I'm not going to give it to him, he loses it. Just, you are a terrible person for not giving me what I want, even though I haven't made any attempt to take care of my own life and my own responsibility. You are a bad person, Mark. So, sorry, I lost my place. I bumped my phone and lost my place. Oh, a longtime friend was upset with me for a slight I don't recall doing. It's true. Somebody I love, care for, and he's just mad at me, and I don't really know why. He won't really say. I've asked several people if any other local ministry has helped them, and the answer is always no. I have certain questions whenever anybody asks me for aid, for help, for whatever. I ask a certain set of questions to kind of find out where they're at and what they're doing. And one of them is, well, have you contacted any other ministries? Have you contacted any other churches? And the answer is always either no, I haven't, or I did, but they wouldn't help me. There's a lot of social services agencies paid for by taxpayer dollars that are just indiscriminately just passing out money like it's nothing. But as far as ministries go, churches go, oh, hell no, forget it. We're not giving you anything. They're not giving you anything. I accidentally dropped and broke my 75 to 300 millimeter lens for my Canon camera. It felt for all the world like someone kicked me in the nuts. Even saying this, it feels like someone kicked me in the nuts. I love photography. It is a lifeline for me, a way to get calm and a way to get into the presence. And I broke my favorite lens, and I can't replace it. I don't have the ability to replace it. Often I reach out to friends for prayer, but when I contact them, they're so immersed in their own lives that I end up praying for them for their stuff and never get around to the reason I called. Yeah, enough said about that. It's true. It's not their fault, and I understand. I arrive at appointments that other people blow off and fail to call or show up for every single day. Every single day. That is true. That is fact. People value their own time. Wow, nobody wants to be disrespected. But nobody really gives a shit. My motives are questioned by those closest and those on the fringes, as if being a rock star preacher is a sin. Yeah. Although my house and auto are compensated for as a way to continue ministry, I do not receive a payment for any of these things, not one penny. Nor do I ask for anything. And this video isn't about asking for anything. I just want you to know that if you're doing worse than me, I love you. And I'm doing everything I can to try to help you as best I'm able. And if you're doing better than me, I still love you. And I'm doing everything I can to help you as best I'm able. It's a calling, a sacred trust between God and myself. My wife and I give rides and help find spots in homeless shelters for people who are so damaged that they are incapable of even saying thank you. Every day. Every day, I'm going out of my way. Pastor Dave is going out of his way. His wife, Diana, is going out of her way. My wife is going out of her way to help people who can't even say thank you. I found myself arguing with a homeless addict to get him to take a free motel room for the night. He was petrified that he would be too far away from his dealer to score heroin the next day. It was 6 degrees out when I talked to him. He would rather freeze to death than miss a fix. Enough said. He went into the bathroom, locked the door, and emerged a half an hour later, only to pass out on the floor. Every day. This is my reality every day, and I am 58 years old. Pastor Dave is 79. We are not young men. And yet I know I'm at the absolute center of God's will for my life, and that I'm doing exactly what I'm called to do. I pray that you can find the same, and that you can say the same. Amen? Amen.